Okay, in this video I'm just recreating this graphic sprite character that's being used in a video game. Basically I'm recreating all the graphics for the game, kind of making the graphics better. So what you're seeing right now isn't what I've done, but I'm going to kind of redraw it and make it better. Basically it's like a mascot type of character. And if you look at previous videos, I've already done recordings of myself redrawing some graphics for the video game. I think it's called Abduction Action. This graphic's a little bit larger than the other graphics that I've done, so it's probably going to take more time just to do this frame. So we'll see how it goes, how long this video will take. I probably won't finish it in one video, maybe I will, depends how things go. So I'm just going to kind of I guess I'll hide this frame and then just kind of redraw, you know, how I can picture it in my mind. I'll keep it relatively similar just because that's what I've been doing with most of the graphics that I've been kind of redrawn. Just kind of keep it similar so it shares resemblance to the original graphics, video game, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's supposed to be like facing more towards the left. The original is just kind of face on, but it's supposed to be kind of facing to the left, since it'll be like walking to the left, walking to the right, doing stuff. So right now I'm just kind of experimenting a little bit, roughing things in. I don't really know like which way to really take it at the moment. I'm just kind of seeing what works, what doesn't work. So the character is like teeth and stuff. So I'm just kind of, you know, playing with it, seeing, you know, how things shape up. If it looks good, if it doesn't look good. If it doesn't look good, I could always change it. You know, it's pretty simple to change things when you're creating graphics. And so he has like a chin there, so I made the chin actually a little larger than the original, or his mouth is open more, I think. That's alright, I'm just kind of feeling things out. It doesn't have to be exactly like the original, because then, you know, what's the point of redrawing it? So I'm kind of just doing my thing, kind of feeling things out. Kind of want his eyes kind of set back a bit, so it looks like his head's turned. I could always like shift the head over a bit, since right now it's kind of towards the right side of the canvas. And he's supposed to be just like some cat character. Kind of looks like a lion, reddish lion in this one, with that mane around his face. So I'll probably just, you know, do something, get like general you know, outline, shape of things, you know, get it roughed in a bit. See, I made his ears more pointy than the original. I don't know if that matters. Probably doesn't really matter too much. Actually, I'll keep the pointy ears, since that's kind of how I feel it should be, I think. Yeah. I gotta make it look like a mascot. So I shouldn't make it too realistic because then it'll look like, you know, it'll look more like a real animal instead of a costume. But this character is supposed to be like much larger than the other characters, which are like human characters. So like this thing isn't really a costume unless the person underneath it is like a giant. Anyways, I think it's like a boss character or something. Yeah, I don't really, I'm not sure how to draw the eye yet. I'm just kind of experimenting a little bit, seeing, you know, how the shapes kind of feel. I don't know if I like the eyelashes. Just kind of makes them look a bit less scary or something. I kind of want to make him look a little intimidating, I guess. So just kind of experimenting, you know. I want to keep like similar features. So I think like the nose kind of has that top portion thing going on. Triangle shape thing. It'd probably help if I have like more colors. His eyes look weird. The ears are too high up on the head, so I'm just going to shift them down. Let's move that over a bit. Okay, so I think what helps it look more like a line is like a broader chin or something. kind of like the original. I think his eyes, I guess it looks alright if his eyes are kind of looking upwards. Because I think, like, in the game, you're like flying around in like a UFO. So, should be looking kind of upwards, I suppose. His ears. Original. Gotta keep it similar to the original because I don't want it looking too real. I just want it to look like a mascot. And already it's kind of, maybe because it's like really sketchy at the moment. Or maybe it's because I haven't drawn the rest of his body. So you're just seeing like the face of it. Because usually context helps your mind kind of figure out what's going on, you know? If you know, something might look a certain way without certain details involved, if you add details that suggest it's something else, you know, your mind kind of picks whatever it thinks it is based on everything it can kind of gather about the situation, you know. So sometimes, you know, you just gotta keep adding stuff and it eventually, you know, gets pulled together and starts looking like something, right? Because, you know, when you draw an image, you know, it doesn't take just one line to draw, in this case, a cat. You know, it takes multiple things, so the more you add that suggests that it's a cat, you know, the more you'll see a cat when you look at it. Okay, so that's his kind of main. Okay, so I guess that's looking pretty good actually. I like the character, the style. It's kind of different, but that's alright. I'm trying to improve it, and the original one is kind of stiff looking. This one has more style, I guess. So, okay, so let's see. His body. I made his head bigger than the original. So, that might be alright. So we'll find out when we start adding his body. Basically, I should probably just rough in the general shapes and then kind of refine it, just so that I, you know, can figure out if, you know, if everything fits. Plus, I don't really know how to pose him yet, so I'm just gonna kind of figure that out. He's got his body there, and he's wearing like shorts, I guess. Yep. Shorts look a little ripped, I think, at the bottom of it, so it's like that. Maybe he was wearing pants and they got ripped or something. I don't know. So yeah, there. It could probably be like his knee or something. Man, his head's kind of big. Maybe I should make his head smaller. Because it has to fit in this area. It might be better just kind of resize his head slightly smaller, just so that I can like work with the body more freely. Probably don't need to resize it too much, just enough to kind of free up some space. And it's a good thing I'm doing it right now when it's rough, so that it, you know, if I did it later when I've already like refined things, the resizing process would kind of mess that up. So when you resize things, like the pixels get all distorted and his hand's kind of big, because I think that those are kind of, you know, help show that he's a cat, because like cats have like big paws, I think, or at least tigers do, lions and that sort of thing. Yeah, just I guess kind of show a bit of the claws. Maybe the claw will be like more forward. It could be like his thumb over there. Yeah. Okay, so what else is there? Oh yeah, his body. Basically just roughing things in general shapes, kind of figured out. Getting an idea of like what details will be included. I could probably raise his legs up just a bit, since I kind of created more space when I resized his head. So now his body kind of, you know, feel more balanced, I guess. His feet, he's wearing like shoes, so just make some general shoe shapes. Make sure they kind of like face to the left a bit. Maybe I should make his t-shirt longer, just so it like looks more like a jersey type of thing. Usually tight around there, I guess. It might help if, you know, I put like those stripes on, just to kind of give a bit more context to like what it is with the A shape as well. So now it looks like more like a jersey because it has characteristics of a jersey. So you just by adding like details that kind of create more context, you get more of a feel for what it is. So okay, so basically I have it roughed out at this point. So I guess the next thing to do, actually, he has like stripes on his shorts. Basically, the next thing I do is just kind of clean things up, clean the lines up. That's gonna take some time. Although, yeah, I guess cleaning up the lines is the next thing to do. Where should I start? I guess anywhere. Just gonna zoom in just so that I could kind of get a good look at the pixels. I'll just create a new window at the original size, just so you can kind of see what's going on. I'll also do that so that it's probably easier to see the character. Alright. Okay, so cleaning up the lines, basically, like, okay, take this section right there. It basically is like steps up like stairs, but that makes the line kind of thicker than it has to be, or needs to be, or should be. So basically I'm just gonna remove some of those so that they're only connected by the corners rather than their edges. And what that does, it just kind of thins that area, that line. You know, it still looks like a line, but it's just, you know, less bold. There's less of an impression. Okay, so basically just gonna kind of keep doing that, kind of removing the pixels that don't necessarily need to be there, just so that I could kind of have like a cleaner looking line or edge. Like, you know, I could leave those pixels because, you know, I'll probably end up, you know, adjusting these pixels even more once I start adding color and shading and tones and that sort of thing. So, you know, I'm just being kind of generalizing things just so that it kind of is easier to work with later on, just so that I don't have to keep I don't know, just so that I don't have to kind of imagine what the shapes are, because right now the shapes are very rough, so I need something like more precise. Well, I don't necessarily need it, but, you know, it'll make like animating it easier, I think. Actually, I don't know. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but I'll just do this way for now. you gotta pick something and just run with it, you know. You know, it's also what I've been kind of doing with the previous characters, so kind of want to keep the process similar, just so that things kind of end up looking similar. Because like for a video game, generally you want stuff to kind of have the same style, consistent style, basically. So yeah, as you can see, it's just repeating the same, you know, processes over and over, just kind of it's like running a comb through it, just kind of combing out all the excess pixels. Sometimes I'm not really sure like which pixels to keep, which pixels not to keep, and so I just remove some and kind of, you know, see if it looks alright. If it doesn't look right, I can add pixels back, kind of shift things over. For instance, like that pixel, or that pixel. Just kind of see, you know, what looks good, what doesn't. Sometimes it looks good both ways, and you just gotta pick one way to do it. Yeah. Trying to think of what to say, but there's not really much to talk about at this point. It's just doing the same thing over and over again. So, you know, this process might seem boring, and yeah, it can get kind of boring doing this, just same stuff. Like this type of, you know, what I'm doing now, just kind of cleaning up the lines. You know, this is when work feels like work, you know. It's like when it doesn't really challenge your mind too much, because you get really good at it because it's just the same thing over and over again, and it's like you're just kind of rerunning the same pattern in your mind of the things to think about. Like, oh, is this pixel next to this pixel? If it is, then I should probably do this. If it's not, I should do something else. And so your mind gets conditioned to kind of think the same way, and it doesn't really exercise it in new ways, I guess. And so like your mind kind of doesn't really have to think too much about it, if that makes sense. It's kind of like if you are exercising and you just do the same exercise over and over again, eventually it doesn't really eventually your body like adapts to it, and then your body's not changing anymore. It's just kind of maintaining the same condition just to kind of perform the thing that it knows how to perform. It doesn't have to be ready to perform anything else because you're just performing the same thing. I don't know. Anyways, this process can get boring, I guess. So that's why I said that, to try and make it more interesting. But oh man, what did I do? But you're probably like, that doesn't make any sense or something. Or like, I don't care what you think about that. Let's just see some art. Let's see some pixels. Anyways, so yeah. Maybe I should just stop the video now and come back to it when I have more done. Or I could just speed it up. Okay, so there's the cleaned up lines. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. So we have the original, which looks like that. It's very, I don't know, looks kind of flat. And then we have this one, has a bit more kind of style to it, I guess. You know what? I'm going to I'm gonna make his legs longer. Just, I feel like his legs are too short. So, to kind of think how I'm gonna do this. His legs longer. Okay, so probably I could just probably lift that up a bit to there, I suppose, and then I guess that works. Yeah, clean up some of the areas that are kind of similar, just so that it makes sense. Actually, I can do that, I suppose. Okay, so yeah. Okay, I think that looks a bit better. It looks more balanced, like more proportional, I guess, in proportion. So, yeah, I like that better. Alright. I think that's going to do it for this video. Next video, I'll start coloring it and adding shading and stuff like that. Okay, I'm continuing on from the previous video, just creating this mascot character for a video game where I'm redrawing all the graphics, just kind of making them better. In this video I'll just be like coloring this, filling in stuff, refining it further, adding shading, that sort of thing. So yeah, this is a previous version, so I'm gonna just kind of keep the same color theme, just so that there's consistency in the designs. Yeah. Okay, so also you could kind of see one of the other characters right here. Other character is much smaller, so that's zoomed 300%. Both of them are zoomed 300%. So that's the size difference. As you can see, this other guy's pretty big. He's like a boss character. And so it's going to take a lot more work to do. Yeah. It's going to take some time. And I have to animate this guy as well. Okay, so start filling in some of the shapes with just color. This guy's supposed to be kind of reddish looking, so I guess I'll sort that out. Now his mane is a different color around his hair. I think it's like a brownish orangey color, and I don't have to make it exactly the same color as the previous thing. I just gotta make it look good. So these colors aren't final yet. I'm just kind of using them just to get an idea as to where to go with it, how to adjust things. Also, I kind of don't like this tooth there. Just gonna tone it down a bit, like that. It's probably all right. Probably just I don't know the best way to do that. Perhaps I want his kind of looks a bit crowded. His teeth. No. I'll just leave it like that for now. I'll probably end up adjusting it later on. That's what it'll look like for now, I guess. So now the colors. Okay. I think there's like gray shoes. I can darken it probably. He also has gray shorts. And he has like orange stripes. It's not quite orangey enough. And orange letter A. His shirt I think is white, and his mouth thing is white. Let's kind of check how the other one looks. I guess the stripes are kind of yellowy. More yellow than orange, I think. Also, his nose is kind of gray color. Okay, so his orange letters. Yeah, that looks pretty good, I think. So we have that. So the inside of his ears are like white. Might as well just keep it consistent, right? Oops. Okay, so that, I guess that's generally, that's the general color scheme. I don't know if I like the mane color. Is lion's mane, tiger mane. I just experiment with it. See what works. Wonder. Nah, maybe it's alright that color. I think it's alright that color. Unless it's... Yeah, I'll just keep it the way it is for now. There's nothing wrong with it. I guess start adding shades and kind of figuring out the what's the word? The forms of the shapes. Give it a bit more depth. Kind of push the darks a bit more around the edges, that sort of thing. So basically kind of adjust colors for each one, kind of making each one kind of darker, and then, you know, using that to kind of just shade in the darker areas. This one is already dark, so might as well reuse certain colors just to keep the color count down. It makes it easier to kind of manage everything so that you're not having to switch between like so many different colors. You just like quickly choose one of the colors from nearby. So I need like a little bluish tint to the white, kind of suggesting some shadow, maybe a bit more. Also, his shirt isn't filled in white yet, because that is the background layer behind it. I don't want to get that confused with the layer that we're working on. Okay. I should probably pick like a neutral color. Some color that we probably won't be using, just kind of fill in the background while we work on the layer that the character is on, just so that we can kind of see what's actually there. Because if the background is white, then it'd be hard to tell if the shirt is actually white or not. But this only matters if you're using multiple layers. So right now I'm just kind of experimenting a little bit, you know, trying different things. You can always like adjust things, change things back. Like I'm putting a lot of shadow there underneath his chin because his head's kind of large, and so it's going to be blocking a lot of the light. And so some shadow is going to be cast on his shirt, his body. I also need to get a darker shade of the orange. I wonder if I could just use this color over there. Sometimes, you know, using colors that you already used will work. Sometimes it won't, because the color won't be exactly what you're looking for. I think that works, actually. I mean, I could probably choose a more orangey yellow color, but I think the color is close enough that it actually works. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. Let me see. I'm using like 2 monitors, and like one monitor, the color is slightly different than the other monitor, so it's kind of difficult to kind of judge. I'll just keep it like that for now. I could always change it later. I mean, once you have like the shading down, the color, you can change colors easily, as long as you have like the right values chosen. Because color is different from the value, the brightness, the luminance. Color is like a quality of light. As it interacts with surfaces. And shading is like the absence of light. So as you can see, they're not exactly the same things, because color is a property of light, and shadow is the absence of light. I'm just kind of messing around with it. It's a large character, so there's a lot of pixels to work with, and I'm trying to keep in mind like how I'm going to animate it. I don't want to add like too much detail, because then animating it will be like a real pain. A painstaking process that'll take a long time. So I want to be careful kind of to like balance things out so that it's not too much detail, but it's the right amount, so that it like conveys the style that the game has, and also I don't know. Just so that it works good. So that, you know, if there's a lot of detail that you have to animate, you know, the animation might become more difficult to actually create right so that it actually looks good. You have to be able to kind of, you know, make a good animation. So you don't want to like add things that are gonna just make that process difficult. If you can help it. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you want to add a lot of detail, and if you're willing to put in the work and time that it takes to make everything look good as best as it can be, then go for it if you have the ability to do it as well. You know, I can make pretty good animations. It just takes a while. All good animations usually take a while. And this will definitely take a while. Because the larger you go, the more important details and shapes are or need to be in each frame. Like, the smaller you are, you're only using like a few pixels to represent shapes and objects and that sort of thing. So, you know, shifting 1 pixel is enough to make that object look as if it's shifting a certain way. Whereas if you're using a lot of pixels and the object's larger, you have to like adjust a lot of pixels just to make a shape or object look as if it's moving in the appropriate way. So there's just a lot more that needs to be considered. And so while I create this frame, I need to make sure I'm not overdoing things. I kind of remove some of these lines, you know, these dark lines, because the style that I've kind of gone with this game usually keeps the darker pixels towards the edges, as you can see in this alien character right here. So I probably don't want these dark lines in the middle of objects, so I could probably just remove this. And also, you know, that's one less detail that I have to manage in the animation. Because every time you have to switch a color, you know, it takes more time, more thought, because you have to kind of juggle it with colors that are nearby. Because if you think about what a detail consists of, a detail is basically any kind of change in the way that your eye is stimulated, and that kind of triggers your mind to kind of focus in on it, because your mind can't focus in on something that doesn't change, because it can't feel what's happening. It has to be able to feel a transition, something it can translate and, you know, interpret. It's yeah. So that's what details are. And that's kind of a nice thing about keeping the color count low. It's manageable, but it's sometimes you want less detail, because too much detail can kind of make your mind kind of confused as to like what to focus on. Because when creating artwork, usually you want to just include things that help convey what you're trying to convey. And if you don't include the details that you're trying to convey, or you include a lot of details in addition to what you're trying to convey, your mind isn't sure, what to focus on. So then what you want to get conveyed might not get interpreted. If that makes sense. It's kind of hard to think while I'm drawing this and shading this at the same time. So I'm not sure if what I'm saying is making any sense. Because I'm just trying to make sure that this looks alright. I think I need to kind of push the shadows a bit, give it a bit more depth. Because I know in the characters that I've done before, there's like real darks in the shadow areas. It kind of helps add depth. It kind of gives the contrast with the highlights. That kind of juxtapositioning with or offsetting. Just gotta kind of figure out how to do it like on a larger scale, because it involves more pixels. So just have to experiment a bit and see what works, what doesn't. If it doesn't work, I can just change it. Like at the moment, the shadow is kind of towards the edges a bit, and I think I need to like push it more. I'm gonna I'll try just like pushing a real dark bluish color. Let's see if that helps any. I might, just use more black, like a bolder edge, thicker edge, or extend like the edge into like the shadow area. And that'll probably help a little bit, kind of make it similar to the low resolution characters. Because if you think about like the pixel size ratio in relation to the perceived height of the character, the lower resolution, the shadow, the dark areas would cover more area. So in this larger version, I need to make sure the shadow, the darks, cover more areas, and so it's not just next to the edges. It's kind of hard to explain that, but hopefully that makes a little sense. And if it doesn't, then you can just kind of see what I'm doing and kind of interpret it yourself. Because that's kind of why I'm doing these videos. so that you could actually see the process and kind of, you know, interpret it your own way, whatever makes sense to you, whatever helps you, you know, understand the process better, because everyone like notices things, different things, based on whatever they're ready to see, I guess. You know, a beginner artist sees things completely different than an experienced artist, and you know, there's always something there that can be explored, I guess. So, just kind of pushing the values a bit. If I extend black down like that, kind of makes the edge or the lines that were there kind of removes the line, or the perception of a line, because now it's just an edge, and edges are lines. When you draw a line, it's just two edges that are nearby each other. If that doesn't make sense to you, then just think about it. A line is two edges that are nearby each other. You kind of explore that concept. Because there's a lot that can be learnt from it, even if it's not, even if it doesn't sound obvious to you. So I'm just going to suggest that. Yeah, I'm kind of liking the way that the black kind of extends. I've been kind of experimenting with like pure blacks lately. Just kind of using pure blacks a lot more lately. You know, artists tend to say, or like, they tend to suggest that you shouldn't use pure black, because in most cases there isn't like a pure black represented in reality if you can see something, because there's always light there, some form of light. And like the only way you would actually see like a pure black is if you were completely like cut off from any light source, which is in rare cases, I guess. But as a tool, black kind of helps push the spectrum of values you use, so that you're not just kind of using values that you're comfortable with. It kind of like, if you use like a dark, real dark, you're more likely to see the values between that dark and the other highlights that you're using, because your eye has to kind of adjust back and forth and focus on the dark and then focus on the light, and then there's like a transition that goes on, so you're more likely to kind of create transitional values between them. Well, that's what you normally do, but like if you push the darks darker than you normally would, then the transitional values will also tend to be darker, and you'll also be able to use more values, I guess, instead of like it being like restricted to a certain scope, I guess is the word. Okay. As you can see, this is going to take a while. My other camera can only record like 30 minutes before it stops. So that's why that camera turned off. And yeah, the camera that's pointed towards me is just like a web cam. Okay, so I guess I'll just use a darker one for this. Maybe I don't need, actually I guess, because the image is large, you kind of have to use more colors to kind of transition things. Whereas if an image is really small, you can't really fit all those transitional shades into the image, because there's so few pixels that you might only be able to use like one color that transitions between another color. So if this guy was smaller, I might not even be using this color, this shade. I might just be using black and then one of the shades. But since it's big, I have to kind of include these shades. I also have to remember to remove these blacks, these lines, just because it kind of looks weird with the lines there, unless the lines, you know, need to be there. And that's kind of like what's the word? It requires like judgment based on like what you're trying to convey, or where it's positioned. Like for instance, the edges of these shorts where the pants are ripped, you can probably leave these lines up here just because it kind of looks like shadow. You can kind of like extend maybe the shadow down here. something like that. I don't know, maybe I just extend it a little bit more just so that it's like more depth or something, just so that it like pushes it out a bit. I guess that's alright. Okay. Not quite sure how far I'm going to get with this. For this video anyways. probably don't want black outlines all the way around the character, just because the other characters, the low resolution characters, they didn't have black outlines all the way around the characters. So I just want to kind of keep it consistent with the style. It'll probably also make it easier to animate as well. It'll also help it pop out a bit. Generally speaking, you won't have dark outlines towards the tops of things if the light's hitting it from the top. So it'll help just kind of brighten up the edges towards the top, towards the direction of the light. You can already tell it's kind of getting more depth to it, more, sense of the dimension of the shapes. We're just kind of generalizing things, we don't want things like amazingly accurate or like realistic or anything like that, because that wouldn't really fit in with the style that we're going for. And that might just be like way too much work that's actually necessary. So let's see, just getting some shadow, more highlights. You don't want to go crazy with it, you don't want to add too many things, just enough to like suggest certain things and just get the point across. Sometimes less detail is better than more detail. Sometimes you could have like a darker line going in, just kind of help separate things, like a little shading underneath the shirt there. His hands in front of his legs, so like to help kind of separate it. And I'm gonna probably leave the black outlines there, just kind of separate things a bit more, visually speaking. Just kind of want to edit the edges a little bit, just kind of smooth things out, make it a little bit more, what's the word? Appealing, I guess, rather than have like the harsh black white edge. Gotta just kind of smooth things out a bit. Certain places kind of help accentuate the forms or lines Maybe put some dark there, just kind of give the impression that it's kind of changing the surface angle, so it's kind of receding a little bit, curving around. You could probably remove the darks there, I think. Seems alright. I'll probably just leave the teeth white like that. I don't think they need too much shading, because then it'll add a bit too much detail there. Your eye will probably focus on it too much, I think. So just kind of shade the, what is that, a cheek? Is it a cheek? No, it's not a cheek. It's like his lip. I think that's too dark. I want to make sure like the form kind of looks like the shape that it's meant to look like. Like the top part kind of gets flat here. So I'm darkening it so that it looks like it recedes a bit. I think that helps a little bit. Kind of looks a bit, what's the word? Might be like too much detail there. Too much detail concentrated in one location. I guess that's alright. Just gotta try things. Some of these lines could remove. Could probably remove these lines over here as well. I think it's looking pretty good. I think we're almost done too. Okay, what's next? Kind of just pretty much doing the same thing over and over again. Just kind of making sure the shape of his nose looks alright. I think that looks alright. His eye. Does that look right? Just trying to finish this off fairly quickly because the video is getting kind of long. I'm not sure if I should connect this to the previous video because the previous video was kind of not that interesting, just black and white drawing. And so if I add them together, then the video might get super long, but it's alright, maybe. I haven't tried it. I haven't tried making a super long video yet, so might be alright. It's been pretty cool. Just gonna add a few more details here and there. Don't want to go overboard, just create necessary details, kind of help that create some context with what you're seeing. Just kind of So just like flowing hair around here, you know. Nothing too fancy, just enough to kind of make you say, yeah, it's hair, or whatever. Remove some of these darker lines. Just kind of help things pop a bit. I'm not removing like some of the lines like beneath, just towards the highlight. And some I could kind of keep relatively dark, just kind of, because they're towards the back, and you kind of have to balance everything out. So we're basically done besides the shoes. Just have to add a little bit more shading. And I think I'm gonna call it done. I think the original has like orange on the shoes. Yeah, the base of it. So I'll just add that quickly. It'll help give it a little bit more detail, just kind of make it a bit more interesting to look at, because at the moment they were just gray shoes. So this will kind of just make it a little bit more detail or interest, I guess. So yeah, does that look alright? I don't want to go crazy with it because I have to animate it. But I could always change certain things, add more detail later. Maybe I should just add a bit more highlights on this one, this arm. Push some of my blacks a bit. Yeah, I guess that's gonna be it. So that's that for this video. I don't know if I'm gonna animate it, make any videos animating. It'll take a long time. I'll have to consider that. But yeah, that's